Good afternoon. I'd like to call to order the October 1st, 2015 Oklahoma City Board of Adjustment meeting. Our first order of business is to receive the minutes of our September 17th meeting.
So moved. Second.
Have a motion and a second. Register your vote. Has everybody registered their vote and it's just not lighting up? Okay. The minutes are approved then. Do we have continuous requests or withdrawals from staff? Hearing none. Any continuous requests or withdrawals from the public? Hearing none, we'll proceed to our first case.
Item 1, case number 14-127, request of Baptist General Convention for a variance to permit 2 single-family dwellings on one lot located at 1609 Southwest 34th Street.
Is the applicant here? Please come to the microphone, give us your name and address for the record, and speak to your application.
My name is Dave Carr. I'm with the Baptist General Convention of Oklahoma, 3800 North May Avenue.
We have the packet, and I think most of us probably understand the issues that are before us. Are there any questions for the applicant? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion.
I'd make a motion to approve the application.
I'll second that. We have a motion and a second. I vote the affirmative, and I believe everybody.
Can we have a voice vote?
Can we have a voice vote, Scott? We have a motion and a second, and so everybody affirms. Okay. You are approved.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry.
How does that work?
Thank you, sir.
Thank
Good
you
luck.
very much.
Item 2, case number 14-128, request of Joel and Catherine Bersnick and Brad and Debbie Whitsett for a variance to permit 2 single-family dwellings in the AE1 Airport Environment Zone.
Joe Beershank, 5700 Northeast 107th Street. And I'm here today to ask for a variance. My parents deeded my sister and I over 5 acres each so that we could build on the family farm that they've lived on for about the last 24 years. In the process of getting the addresses, we found out that we were in the airport environmental zone for Tinker Air Force Base. We're approximately 7 miles north of the runway. And, excuse me, I'm on the backside of a cold here. And we have had a civil engineer, Ernest Ish, contact Tinker to make sure they had no objections. We have an email from them stating that they have none and would like the board to approve our variance.
And you'll notice that both tracks just partially encroach, and if the noise doesn't bother you, and apparently there's some other people that have allowed them.
I grew up in Tacoma Park in the flight path, and my wife grew up in Del City in the flight path, so we're well aware of the noise.
I just had a question or two. You were referring to the federal, said you have a letter that you've attached in the Air Force. That is what you're relying on for the approval with the property numbers?
That letter and the Tinker Air Force Base community map that shows their zones where they have the restricted housing and the recommended decibel ranges.
Right. You didn't attach that exhibit to your...
I've got them here. I thought we attached it. I apologize, but I've got them if you want to see them.
I think that would be helpful to have it as the part of the record to show that it's... and your family, was Horn in your family or something? I noticed that it was it the Horn family or your parents or?
It's my parents, the Beershanks.
Oh, okay.
You can hand that to Scotty.
I had a question about this. You said that the property's already been deeded to you.
Correct.
The concern that I have about it is not necessarily with respect to these applicants, because they're clearly aware now that they're in an environmental or an airport zone. But I wonder if it's within our power or purview to require there be some sort of notation placed on their deed so that any kind of or something recorded in the deeds records, the registrar's office, so that any future purchaser would also be aware of that before they go down and try to get a building permit. Yeah, I'm looking at you.
No, I wanted to make sure you were finished with your question. There would be something in the chain of title that would indicate that this is within the airport environs 1 zone, but I don't know that there's necessarily anything that's recorded as far as the federal flight. I don't know what the federal document is called.
So just as a practical matter, how would that come up if you had to borrow money or something to get a title search, a title?
Right, if you're getting title insurance, then when they're doing the title search to make sure that you have proper title to the property, that's when that kind of thing would come up. But if it's a family transfer and there isn't necessarily a mortgage or anything on the property, that issue might not come up.
And a property being an AE1 is not going to, in and of itself, is not going to affect a bank's ability to write a mortgage on the property. It's a zoning overlay, so it's going to show up in those records, but it's not going to preclude someone from getting a loan.
Oh, and that, yeah, I would hope not, but you would at least want people to be aware.
Oh, yeah, sure.
If it's any consolation, we have promised our parents that we will not sell the properties, at least while they're living, so.
Any other discussion or question for the applicant?
I'll make a motion to approve the application.
I'll second that. We have a motion and a second. Register your approval by saying aye. Aye. Motion is approved.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Good luck.
Item 3, case number 14-129, request of 240 Land LLC for a variance to the permitted for the pedestrian sidewalk through the parking lot at 1609 and 15 Penn Park Boulevard.
Good afternoon, Tim Johnson with Johnson Associates here on behalf of Paul Odom, the applicant in this case. This is a little bit of a unique situation. The Penn Park Boulevard that goes across and used to serve the old Walmart to the east of here was platted and installed back in late 80s, early 2000, late 90s, or late 80s, early 90s. Those blocks that are north that are zoned straight C3 were developed at that time based on that alignment. When the Walmart went away and there was some work done in this area, the roadway itself was actually, the boulevard used to go like this. This roadway was brought south to line up with the front of the new buildings that are east of there. And I apologize for this wrinkly map. So what that did was it created this depth of this block that we're kind of married to. And so in working with the, this is a proposed Cons building. They have their minimum criteria for the building. If we have to put this pathway in here, which you normally would see in a very deep parking lot, such as a Walmart or Sam's, where you have that clear walking distance to the front door or to one of the accessible routes, it would not allow us to have enough parking to meet code because we're stuck with this line right here. So this distance is 135 feet. We have a 24-foot driving lane. So we're just over the required distance that would mandate this pathway that would have to be put in between some of these parking areas. So that's why we're here for the variance. You know, as the code says, if you have over 200 spaces, which are not required 200 spaces for this building, or we're greater than 140 feet, and we are just about 12 feet greater than 140 feet to this driving lane. So that's why we're here. If we have to put that walking way in there, we would not have enough parking to allow for the rest of the commercial to be developed as it was originally planned when this was platted many, many years ago.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but you mean based on the parking code requirements, if you lost a row of that parking, then the future development tracks that you're not building now, you'd have a parking issue?
That's correct, because we're less than the 140 feet here, so we wouldn't be required to have the aisle on that side. We're only required to have the aisle here because of the
Because of the depth of the street. But the street bent up to align with the building fronts back when that portion of the property was redeveloped, the eastern
Correct.
portion. And so does your client own the eastern portion of that building also? The eastern portion of the shopping center, I mean the current developed shopping center?
Not the whole shopping center, no, his property
not.
line stops here.
So there's no way to get necessarily a cross-access agreement or
That's
something?
correct.
Okay.
And he doesn't own anything south of the public street. It's just this tract.
Didn't you indicate that because you're serving two, there are going to be two separate businesses? Is that what you were talking about for this, all the spaces?
Well, this is going to be cons, this will be retail, and then a future phase, this will be retail. Unspecified at this point. But based on the square footage that we're proposing to fill in that gap, this plan meets that, the parking requirement as is.
Tim, is the second structure, is that just inline retail development,
Yes.
just undetermined?
Undetermined at this
Okay.
point, no tenants. So based on square footage. It's just a tricky little situation. My understanding was that this requirement of the code was adopted was part of the landscape code, maybe in '09, JJ, something like that. So this depth of this block was set aside way longer before that, so. It would just be restrictive to the ability to put a cons there and have the proper retail depth as you line up with the rest of the retail that goes east of there.
Is there anyone here to object to the application?
Nobody signed up, and there are no objections that I'm aware of. Any other discussion or questions for the applicant from the board? Ms. Powers?
Tim, what I really hear you saying is that it's not that you couldn't meet the parking requirement, period. It's that you couldn't meet the parking requirement for the size of building you want to build over on the eastern side. So your building might have to be a little bit smaller to meet your parking requirement.
That's correct. However, I mean, the parking on the east side really is greater than any retail over there would be. It's really meeting this first big block is the requirement.
Frankly, I don't know what I think about this. The idea of, sort of chopping this up and treating it as separate retail spaces when it's clearly developed as a unit and was intended to be developed as a unit, I don't know. I don't like the idea of varying these kinds of requirements. They're there for a reason, sort of exactly the thing they're intended to provide, safe walking space in these large parking lots. But, will the world come to an end tomorrow if we do it? No, it will not. So I'm ambivalent about this, frankly.
And we're over that distance by about 10% or less. I mean, it's just, we're right there on the threshold is what's driving it.
Any other discussion or questions for the applicant?
I'd make a motion to approve the application.
I'll second it.
Have a motion and a second. Register your support by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Nay. You are approved.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 4 is case number 14130, request of Johnson & Associates for a variance to the arterial sidewalk requirement at 6900 North Bryant Avenue.
Again, Tim Johnson on behalf of the applicant. This is a situation where by code and by the street master plan, this little segment of what we call frontage road does not meet the service road requirements, which pick up north of 71st Street. So we're in a little piece of no man's land along here, zoned I-2. There's not a sidewalk within 5 miles of this area, and there's no place to walk to. There are some physical aspects that make a sidewalk unsafe adjacent to this frontage road. The posted speed limit on the frontage road is only about 35 or 40, but people drive up and down this thing like a speedway. It really is not a safe place for, just like a service road, it's not a safe place for a sidewalk. And with the industrial uses that are there, The car storage yard is just south of the site here. Our site's here, I'm sorry, our site's here, the car storage yard's here and here, pipe storage yard here. So there's no real pedestrian access way or place to go, even if there was a sidewalk there. So I know this is unusual. We don't like to come before you to request a variance for sidewalks. But this one is just, it would be a waste of the developer's funds and not provide a safe place for pedestrians.
I went out there, and I concur with I went out there, and I don't even know where you'd actually put the sidewalk. It doesn't fit, and then it connects with the access road on the, is it the south? I forgot, the south side. So it actually runs into the access road, and it really doesn't appear to be, and there are no sidewalks within any part of that area at all. So I would have.
I agree with that. This is, again, one of those things that I don't like to vary this requirement. Nobody ever wants to build their sidewalks. But this is a situation where not only does it not make sense, it really probably would be a bad idea to put one here. And it would, if it served any purpose at all. So is there anybody here that wants to speak on this matter?
Nobody has signed up. Anybody here to speak on this matter?
I'll move for approval.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Register your support by saying aye. Opposed, nay. You are approved.
Thank you.
Is there any other business before this board? If not, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Register your support of the motion to adjourn by saying aye. Aye. We are adjourned.